An institution will seek an outside contractor to do reformatting work because, one, they lack the equipment to do the job, secondly, they lack the staff to do the work, or that staff does not have the expertise to do the work.
What a collection gets from the relationship is access to the expertise of somebody who does this for a living, much in the way that you would go to a physician if you were really sick, as opposed to just going to the drugstore. When we first start working with an institution at the beginning of a project, even just the discussion of it, it's really useful to have some information about the context. Is this grant funded? Is it preliminary inquiry? Is it part of a larger project? So we can understand something about the scope and time frame in which a project needs to be completed. In order to prepare an adequate project description and from that a bid, there's a lot of information that we need because the projects vary, both from content to desired output to the institution and what their needs are. So we need to know things like how many pieces there are, what format. To know how long they are is really useful, as well as knowing what the resolutions are for the output and the number and type of derivatives of the formats that they'll want.
And some thoughts about the process that one goes through within the institution. One, as I mentioned, is identifying potential vendors who can do the work. Secondly, getting some sense of the costs of the project so that one knows how to budget for it. Then getting the institutional okay from the higher echelons so that you know you have the money in hand to get the project launched. And setting up a process for the decision making when those responses to your request for bids or request for proposals comes in, so that you feel like you have the expertise in-house to make those decisions: who will give you the best work product, who will give you the best cost, and when you compare those two against all of the vendors who have responded to your request for proposal, determining the best value to your institution for the funds that are available. The institution probably has two ways to go in approaching vendors to undertake a project. The first would be a request for proposals. This would be in a situation where the institution and its staff knows that work needs to be done, but doesn't quite know how to get it done. So they're looking for proposals from people in the field to tell them how the work should be done, what the end products might be, and what the cost would be to do it. The second would be a request for bids, where the institution knows very specifically what direction they want to go in, what they want the end product to be, and all they are really looking for is a description of how the vendors will do the work and what the work will cost. A statement of work is essential to organize the project. It needs to describe, initially, the source documents, the source audiovisual documents that are to be reformatted. Formats, kinds, the number of items, the size of the items, and known conservation problems that the vendor will have to deal with.
Since these materials are unfamiliar to most institutions, developing a good statement of work can be very difficult because they just don't know what to ask for. And since there is such a wide variety of formats and deliverable types, resolutions, derivatives, it's usually best as a collaborative process. Bring me what you have, what your needs are, and we'll try to design a project for you. If you're working from standard documents, then you may have a place to start that you want to follow a certain set of standards, for instance. So you may be able to write a statement of work, but expect some interaction with the service provider, or if it's going out to bid, from several providers to help design the project. Remember, you're going to an outside service provider because they provide a certain level of expertise, and harvest that expertise.
Other elements in the statement of work: the description of the deliverables. Obviously that, because the vendor needs to know what they are being required to provide to you. And if you're requesting or requiring metadata to go along with it, a description of what that metadata shall be and how it shall be transmitted to you. You might be providing other materials because you can, perhaps as a government institution or a nonprofit, provide the recording media, if there are media involved, hard drives or videotape or what have you, and the housings, the primary housings in which these new media will be placed, and even the labels, whether you want your own institution's labels to be put on the media. Sometimes you don't want to get involved in providing the media because if there are problems between you and the vendor about the quality of the work, there's the chance that the vendor will blame it on the media that you provided, and you might be trying to blame the vendor for the quality of the work that they did to get it on your good media. So I think maybe not providing media is a smart approach to this. It should not cost you that much more in the total project budget. Packaging requirements. How do you want the materials to be delivered to your door? What should they look like going on the shelf? Should they be waterproof containers or just cardboard containers? Probably not the latter. What are the vendor's qualifications to do the work? You want them to describe how they will do it and what their qualifications are rather than giving you the same kind of stuff that goes in their four-color brochure. You want them to have to cerebrate over this process a little bit so you know that they're thinking that you're demanding high-quality work. How long have they been in the business? Another important factor. In this whole process, will you want oral presentations from the potential vendors, or will you settle for just a written presentation?
Some of the most constructive bid review processes we've been involved in are multi-steps. The processes where you get a specification everybody has to submit on this piece of paper what they're going to do can be very difficult because there's so little leeway involved. We really like working on processes where there's a proposal stage where a variety of vendors will submit recommendations for how a project could be done. The institution reviews those, and we'll go back, interview the various vendors, and come up with a second round of bid review that incorporates the ideas that come from the different vendors. It's a much richer interaction. I think projects are served by that process. They have multiple rounds of review. One of the most important things that an institution can do as part of a project is to be very disciplined about a pilot project. Grab just a few items out of the collection, randomly or sequentially, something representative of what the materials are, and run a pilot project that would be from start to finish covering all aspects, resolution, format, deliverables, get those materials back, interact with them within their context so that they can know that everything is going to be just what they want. It's a real problem to run 100 or 1,000 items, find some silly niggling detail isn't quite what you expected.
You can try to monitor the vendor's quality assurance processes by asking them to report in writing how they have done that work, or in fact, visiting the site and see how the quality assurance work is being done by the staff of the vendor as that work is being done. You certainly will want a test batch when the project first gets started, so you can look at or listen to the material and get a sense of whether it's up to the standard that you think it should be. And throughout the whole project, you will want to sample batches to make sure that things are up to par. And of course, selecting vendors who have done the work before gives you some assurance of quality that they're still in the business and talking to people for whom they have worked.
There are all kinds of things that an institution can do to help the projects move along. From very simple things like how long does it take between the project being awarded and when the materials ship. Projects need to finish, they need to finish in a timely way,